This evening's reading is from John, chapter 11, beginning at verse 45. The plot to kill Jesus. Therefore many of the Jews who had come to visit Mary and had seen what Jesus did put their faith in him. But some of them went to the Pharisees and told them what Jesus had done. Then the chief priests and the Pharisees called a meeting of the Sanhedrin. "What are we accomplishing?" they asked. "Here is the man performing many signs. If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him, and then the Romans will come and take away both our temple and our nation." Then one of them, named Caiaphas, who was high priest that year, spoke up. "You know nothing at all. You do not realize that it is better for you that one man die for the people than that the whole nation perish." He did not say this on his own, but as high priest that year he prophesied that Jesus would die for the Jewish nation, and not only for a nation, but also for the scattered children of God, to bring them together and make them one. So from that day on they plotted to take his life. Therefore Jesus no longer moved about publicly among the Jews. Instead he withdrew to a region near the wilderness, to a village called Ephraim, where he stayed with his disciples. When it was almost time for the Jewish Passover, many went up from the country to Jerusalem for their ceremonial cleansing before the Passover. They kept looking for Jesus, and as they stood in the temple courts, they asked one another, "What do you think? Isn't he coming to the feast at all?" But the chief priests and the Pharisees had given out orders that anyone who found out where Jesus was should report it, so that they might arrest him. This passage is arguably the turning point in the Gospel of John. Jesus' miraculous acts and subversive teaching, which culminated in the raising of Lazarus from the dead, give way to the beginning of the Easter story and the long road to the cross. It's in this passage, immediately after the resurrection of Lazarus, that the Jewish leaders decide to kill Jesus. But it's interesting that their reasons are political rather than religious. They say, if we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him, and then the Romans will come and take away both our temple and our nation. Jesus, who captivated crowds from all sections of society, is seen as a threat to the political and religious establishment of the day. Suddenly, their human systems of power and privilege seem unstable. A man, Lazarus, has been raised from the dead by the rabbi who wept. It's a power that the temple, the law, and the almighty Roman Empire cannot comprehend. And so the solution is to kill Jesus. The last weeks have brought the mightiest nations to their knees. And don't get me wrong, this isn't a good thing, and we should all work with nations and governments to promote global health and peace. But it is a reminder of the frailty of human political systems, which, for someone like me who works in politics, is oddly reassuring. Caiaphas, the high priest, I think I'm pronouncing that right, seems to grasp this better than his colleagues. He prophesies that, as verse 52 says, Jesus would not only die for the Jewish nation, but also for the scattered children of God, to bring them together and to make them one. In other words, Jesus transcends our national borders. It is God who unites people, not nations. And so, as our country pulls together, we as a church must pull together too. In times of crisis, we can look to Jesus. In his life, he modelled a different kind of power, one that was based on love, on self-sacrifice, and on peace. It's a power which weeps at the death of a friend, and a power which brings life where there was death. Empires rise and fall, nations come and pass away, even our political rulers will get sick. But God is steadfast, and he brings his scattered children together.